Hey, what up? It's Quinn Chess, and today let's hop into another Blitz game on the Road to 2000 series. So we lost a couple rating points because I just lost the game to a pretty horrendous blunder. You guys can check it out in my game history if you're interested. You might get a laugh from it. So this game I'm going to be a little bit more careful, but I'm also going to make sure that I play an interesting game, something that I can learn from. So my opponent goes for the King's Indian defense here, and I'm pretty used to playing this as the player with the black pieces. So I know a little bit of the theory behind this opening, and I think, play it pretty competently as the player with the white pieces as well. So he goes bishop g4 here, hitting the knight. Everything is fine there. Let's go for bishop to e3 for now. Because his bishop is on g4, he can't play knight to g4 yet. So I think our bishop is okay on e3. And he takes, plays e5. Let's go d5 here. This knight often will make a retreating move, and then he'll play like f5, expanding on the king side. And then meanwhile, let's try to break things open on the queen side. Let's go with b4 with the idea of playing c5 at some point. Get an early pawn storm going. His attack is going a little bit slower. In King's Indian, the white player often plays on the queen side, and then the black player often plays on the king side, where his pawns are pointing. You want to play in the direction of where your pawns are pointing. But because he just played rook e8, now he doesn't have this retreating move with the knight to give c5 f5 the possibility. So he's taken that away from himself. And so his attack is going to land just a little bit slower than mine. So we have a good pawn center set up already, and we can go for an early pass pawn with d6 potentially. And he actually is trying to goad us into doing that. I think we may as well oblige him. Taking on c6 wouldn't be to our advantage, I think. Yeah, let's go for this. This could be very good for us. And let's go knight to a4, maybe a4, a5. He does he want to play b6 at some point, maybe? b6, c takes, pawn takes. The c pawn would be weak. He just had to make a retreating move with his rook, and we do have the two bishops, so trading pieces down to an endgame would also be good for us. Knight a4 doesn't really prevent b6. I think he's got enough material, or maybe it does. Let's go knight a4 actually. b6 takes, and I don't have takes because he can play knight takes. Okay, so he's going to hop his queen out. I think that's fine. Let's just play rook to b8-1, hit the pawn on b7, and further try to stop this b6 move. And really put a clamp down on the position. Got to be careful not to hang our knight, of course. Let's reinforce c5 and also keep defending the knight and connect the rooks. This pawn could be a real weakness for him, so we could even try to stack on it. This move also defends e4, which I like, so that our bishop can move away from f3 where it's not currently doing very much. I'm thinking about maybe doubling the rooks along the b file, and then just going after this pawn. It's not the most lucrative plan. The most we can get from it is this pawn, but he doesn't have that much going for him because he didn't launch his kingside attack. You can see how the King's Indian can kind of fall apart for black if he doesn't get the counterplay going. Okay, so he goes with the pawn push. En passant capture, I think, is the right move here. And he's going to be dropping this c pawn, I believe. Okay, so he takes back with a pawn. And now we can just take on c6. Let me just give this a double check. I think that looks good. And if he pokes us with the rook, I'll just hop back to b5 with the queen and offer a queen trade. So I think it's looking pretty good for us early on. The advantage is very initiative dependent, which means that in just a few tempi he can um, get the advantage back. Oh, he decides to push the pawn. Okay. Let's think this through here. Can I go knight to c5? Maybe not. I can't take on b5. Yeah, this is a pretty good move by our opponent. And knight c3 blunders to rook c1. And knight c5, knight takes, queen takes, I think works. And if knight c5, rook there, queen here. Okay, I think knight c5 works. Let's play it. Had to calculate that for a moment. If he goes rook to c8, I'll just play queen to a6 and offer the queen trade. Yep, he does do that. So let's offer the queen trade. Just pre-move the recapture there if he goes for it. Bit of a tactical flurry here between myself and the opponent. Yeah. And if he doesn't take, maybe I'll just take on d7 and keep trading down pieces because I have the two bishops and an extra pawn. So that's favorable for me. He's running a little bit low on the clock. In terms of piece development, it's about even, but his knights are more passive than mine, and then he also has his bishop that's kind of shut off from the action. Okay, so he goes there. Let's go knight c7. This is an unorthodox move, but it shields the... Oh, okay, he took the pawn. Let's take his pawn then. I was going to say it shields a6 square, which protects the d6 pawn. And it prevents his rook from coming into c6. So it's a good defensive move, I think. And now he's hitting on e4. It's a good move. My opponent is finding ways to be resourceful. May not be defensible. And we're also getting low on time. Yeah, I don't want to burn out too much of my time on this move. So let's just play rook d1. We'll lose the pawn. But I'm protecting this pawn. Okay, so he does take. And now my knight can hop back to d5. I'm threatening to give a check here. He's also possibly going to hit this fork on c3. So we have some competing threats going between us in the position. So if he moves his rook, I'll move my rook as well. That's the way that the cookie will crumble potentially there. I think it's going to come down to time here. If whoever's down on time is going to maybe blunder. Okay, so he protects the pawn with his bishop. But do I have a tactic here? Let's see. I can take the knight to get rid of the fork first. And then I can give a fork there. And if he takes with the bishop, I take back with the pawn. Let's go for that. And then I don't think I have a tactic, but I am. Oh, and he does blunder that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was attacking the knight that was undefended on d7. Wasn't technically a tactic, but it did lead to him blundering, so that works out for us. And now we need to take care of our back rank. So let's go for H. Why don't we play G3? Okay, so he runs with his king. We can take this pawn. And now I'm threatening rook to d8. Let's go for that. Rook to d8. And we are very dangerously close to promotion here. Okay, he plays a good move. Let's defend that rook. Gives a check. Just run. And do we want to trade rooks here? Yeah, let's go for a trade because I have something up my sleeve. He resigns. Okay. Let's take this to the analysis board. So I'm actually going to analyze it on Lichess. Just give me a moment to plug the fen in. Let me change the scene. Okay. So we're going to analyze this on Lichess. I'm just going to go over any major blunders that were made and see if, maybe I gave up an advantage when I shouldn't have or something. And I'll edit it next time so that you guys can see the computer analysis as well. Just give it a few moments to load here. So it's saying I had a pretty solid advantage throughout. Let's take a look at this position. It's loading a bit slowly because, okay, there we go. So here, Stockfish actually likes maintaining the tension in the center, playing moves like queen to b3, rook to c1, or rook to b1. And because if he takes here, we take back and we still have a pass pawn. So there's no need to release that tension so quickly. So if we were to play like queen b3, for example, it could eventually reach a position where we do play d6, but under more favorable conditions. So very slight kind of detail there. d6 is marked as a questionable move, mainly because of rook e6, which our opponent didn't play. He went back to e8. And then there was another moment here after he played b5. So the computer doesn't like c takes b6. It prefers just retreating the knight, and I think that makes sense because we have the pass pawn, right? And b5 is actually releasing the pressure on c5. He's never going to be able to challenge this pawn with a pawn again. So there's no reason to capture en passant. It's better to just leave the pawn there and um, oops, just leave the pawn there so that we can defend this pawn. Instead, by taking on b6, we're getting rid of our passed pawn defender. So that also makes sense. And then here, the computer prefers knight takes b5 rather than rook takes b5. Because of bishop to f8. Okay, it's not like a very serious blunder, so I'm not gonna focus on that too much. But overall, here I had perhaps a larger advantage. So there was no blunders here with the uh, queen coming into the game, coming into his territory on c6. So that's good. Just trying to see if there's any way I could have optimized this more. Okay, so here playing knight b4 was preferred so that we don't lose the a pawn, even though it means not trading for the b pawn right away, and just maybe playing more patiently to try to win this pawn right there. And what ensues from this position is a very careful dance where we have to positionally outplay the opponent by maneuvering our pieces in a way that's more efficient than he does. Okay. Yeah, I think that was a good game. The Lichess computer gives me a 94% accuracy, so that's pretty good. Our opponent also had 88% accuracy. Well fought game. In the end, decided by the blunder where he right here, where he forgot to defend his own knight on d7. But even apart from that, this position is very difficult for our opponent to play, just with how imminent the pass pawn is and our very active rooks compared to his rooks, which are doing a little bit less than ours. Interestingly, he likes king g7 here. And why can't we just take the knight? Because of rook to c1 check, bishop takes c1, rook to e1 mate. So you promote the pawn first, distract the rook, and then you take on d7. So either way, you're going to be winning that knight. Okay, I hope you guys have enjoyed this installment of the Road to 2000 series. We played a very good game in this episode, and I feel like it was a game where I learned quite a bit. And I went for an advantage by pushing the pawn to d6 after having a good kingside attack, queenside attack. So we definitely were active in seeking an advantage, and that led to our opponent ultimately making some positional errors that we were able to capitalize on. So the game was more exciting than the last game in this series. If you guys enjoyed, give it a subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.